store for me. No room to measure all your goodness to a window in the sky, sending blessings on my life. It starts with grateful winds and faithful rains, a gift that changed my life. So amazing. I don't know why you chose me. All I know is I'm so in love with you. Deserving of you is a question that I ask myself. Do you love
Hey,
me?
Janaya.
Show me the answers, yes.
How was your day? Hope you're staying cool. Hey, sweet pea.
I don't know why you chose me. All I know is I'm so in love with you. You are amazing. So
Hope you all are staying cool. It is hot and it's gonna be hot all week. Mine was pretty good. You know, I took an extra day off today. I work from home, but I took an extra day off today just to get a few things done around the house. So that's always a good thing. Gonna start in a few minutes. Well, a minute probably. Hope you guys are just in anticipation of reading the rest of chapter 1. Like I said, this one's a pretty long chapter. Chapter 1. We're gonna start in a few. I haven't even been outside today. I was like, it's hot. Let the dog out. I felt it was hot and came right back in. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So welcome you guys to another edition of me reading from my book. Like I said, I promised I was gonna read it in its entirety, not in one day, but take bits and pieces and teach and, you know, minister from, you know, this book, The Psalms of My Emotions. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. God has given me the title of the book, you know, The Psalms of My Emotions. Unbeknownst to me, didn't know that he was giving me, you know, a ministry. And that's what the P of me stands for. It's The Psalms of My Emotions. And, you know, it's pertaining to, you know, like, I don't think we touch on emotions enough. We don't dig into emotions, you know, enough. And dissect them, and because sometimes people look at their past or they look at things that they've been through, and sometimes it may be too painful to look back and to dissect. But a lot of things, you know, that we go through, if you don't look at the root, you won't know why, you know, you won't get delivered from the things that you're going through now. You know, a lot of things we've opened up in the past and we don't want to go back there, or just think, well, that has nothing to do with things. That has everything to do with what you're doing now. Hey, Emmy. That has everything to do with, you know, how you are now. So, you know, we're just going to go ahead and jump right in. So I started, you know, at the beginning with love pains. I kind of pretty much went and brushed through, my childhood, what love looked like. And just to rehash a little bit what love looked like to us. I believe, when we were younger, we had an idea of what love looked like for us. And then I believe, we just kind of had this standard, from TV and watching the Cosby Show, watching, other couples on TV. But us being young, we never thought about comparing, the love that, we're trying to attain to God, how God loves us. We were raised in church, some of us, and then, we kind of don't understand how that incorporates to, our relationships. So I'm just going to go ahead and start reading. We stopped off on red flags. So, how many of us ignore red flags in relationships? Like, something is wrong and you feel it in the pit of your stomach. Something is not right. This glare, Lord. Something is not right. I'm going to have to take off these glasses. Something is not right. Something is not all together. So then, we ignore it because of our just desires or us being desperate, in our terms, us being thirsty. We look past a whole bunch of stuff. I would say that's more so, in women. We look past a lot of things when it comes to relationships, and we know those red flags are there. So I'm just going to go ahead and just start reading from there. From the Love Pains, chapter 1. There are always caution signs, stop signs, and flags thrown into the path of situations where God wants to deflect us from going. Most of the time, the sign displaying that something is out of order is never followed and simply dodged. Imagine a car going through a stop sign or passing through a red traffic light. Eventually, ignoring these signs long enough will lead to destruction. You get severely hurt, you hurt others, or you die. Nothing good comes from not obeying God's signs. I ignored all signs leading to my marriage because of the desperate need to feel whole. How many of us have been there? Where we ignored a lot of things. We ignored, God leading us and God warning us on certain things. And then it just seems like things in the situation got worse. And that's because we wasn't paying attention. We weren't adhering to the signs that God was giving us. So I love when God gives me analogies. He's given me several analogies for this book to break down, because I want everybody just to understand. So this, like I said, I just equivalated to a car just going through traffic, just going, and you just ignoring. Like, just imagine you just sitting there riding in the car. There's a red light, but you're going to keep on going anyway. It's inevitable about, you have maybe a 50% chance, maybe, but it's going to be an accident because you ignored the signs. And that's how, when God gives us something, we have to adhere to it quick. So, I ignored all of that because of my desperate need to feel whole. So I just didn't even know what all that would take. And I didn't know, all I know was just that I wanted to get married. That's all I wanted to know. I just seen everybody else being happy being in a marriage. I seen everybody else being happy being in a relationship. So I felt like me just looking at that, like, hey, they got it all together. They got it all together. But lo and behold, I had no idea what marriage entailed. But I know I wanted it because there was just this empty hole, inside of me that I just didn't know what it was. And just, further on down the line, now that, hindsight is 2020, that was my need for the Spirit. That was my need for the Holy Spirit. So, God will sometimes do that. God will let you fill that hole with other stuff, before you get to the realization, the revelation that you need Him. So he'll take you through that. So I'm going to go ahead and read on. After we established our relationship, I started to visit him at least twice a month. This is, I was talking about my, boyfriend then, and then he became my husband. So I'm talking about my ex-husband right now, but he was my boyfriend at this time and in this context that I'm reading. After we established our relationship, I started to visit him at least twice a month. The Greyhound station appeared to be my second home for almost a year. Girl, man, y'all, I was riding that. I was on that bus. I was on that bus almost every month trying to see, my boyfriend. He lived in Indianapolis at the time. I was just, man, every time I got paid, every other paycheck, I went to go see him. I knew the ins and outs of the Greyhound station. I knew, the schedules like clockwork. I knew. So, let me go ahead and read on. So I said, the Greyhound station appeared to be my second home for almost a year. He stayed with his mother, didn't have a car at the time, and worked. His mother would usually do all of the cooking, cleaning, and taking him wherever he needed to go. He refused to drive. Now, even that, mind you, I just chalked it up to me being younger. I believe I was maybe 21 or 22 around this time. I'm like, everybody don't have their own house and everybody don't have their own car, and I didn't know any better. So, he was living with his mom. He worked, but he would live with his mom, and he would not drive anywhere. He wouldn't drive anywhere. I did all the driving. That's probably why I can't stand driving now. But even this was something in my mind that I felt that wasn't a major issue to consider. I had compassion, even with the knowledge of this situation, with the thought that this is only temporary and I can show him the way. Red flag right there. Red flag. When you get that inkling that when you're with somebody that, oh, I can fix him, that's a red flag. Flag on play. That is a red flag. So after every visit, I will find myself weepy and heavily dependent on being in his presence. This may be normal to some and chalked up to just the feelings of being in love, but that weeping, as I later discovered, was a red light indicator. And I remember, like I said, just even going back and thinking, every time that I left, I would weep because I wanted to be in his presence. What do that sound like to y'all? Don't that sound like something that you should be in God's presence? Like that's the way you should feel in God's presence. I would then automatically, even in this situation, you could see where somebody was being an idol. I was starting to idolize, a human being. I was starting to idolize, the idea, of being married and being with someone. So, I'm just taking you guys down my road. Hi to everyone coming in and watching. So that was a red light indicator. It was not because I was in love with him. It was because I felt neglected. It left me empty. So even that was sort of like a trigger point to, maybe how I felt in my childhood, being neglected or feeling, abandoned in some kind of way. So then that triggered something to make me get into a desperation mode. Has anybody ever been there? When you think about and we chalk it up to just being young and, naive, which that was part of it. But, when you think about the things that you used to do, and I believe some people still do this. That's why I'm reading it. That's why I'm exposing it now. So people can see this and identify it and just say, hey, that's not healthy. And look back and just evaluate, actions. So after all that was going on, the relationship progressed. So as the relationship progressed, I would feel a sense of overwhelming anger. It would creep out in little spurts while we were together. I would never forget the first time I lashed out at him. Now, see, this is when the crazy was starting to come out. Like something was coming out, activated in that moment. Hey, Tasha. Something was activated in that moment. Anger. Oh, sense of overwhelming anger would creep out in little spurts while we were together. This is something that I want. This is something that I was desperate for. And I was angry. That's messed up. So look, I would never forget the first time I lashed out at him. I was helping his sister wrap gifts for Christmas while visiting one weekend, and he refused to help. I started to fuss, then ranted and raved, even in front of his family, about how it's important to establish tradition. I didn't even care. I was disrespectful, even in front of his family. I even demanded that if we were to ever have children, he will participate while angrily cutting sparkling Christmas wrapping paper and tossing items across the room. So look, guess what was showing up in that moment? The spirit of Jezebel started to manifest in my spirit. What was happening to me? What is happening to this sweet, mild-mannered young woman? My compromise started to open up some ugly, evil doors. I was already angry and bitter with my decision and did not realize it. I still wanted to move forward with what I deemed fixable instead of waiting for what God had prepared or would prepare. That impatience will get y'all in trouble. That impatience will get you in trouble, y'all. Y'all try to rush God and see what happens. Then that is an open door, for the demonic to come in. That's an open door for something else to come in because you're not patient, and then you start to reach out for things that are not of God. You start to create your own path. You start to create your own ways just to get what you want. Even though it's not exactly, you feel it. Like when everybody talk about that gut feeling, you know when something's not right. So the discontentment still followed as months went on during the relationship. So I was discontent throughout this whole thing. Like I knew this wasn't it and didn't even know why I continued. It is interesting how we commit ourselves to uncommitted relationship situations and scenarios. We both had not exchanged vows at this point, or even were engaged. Weren't even engaged. No ring on my finger, nothing. That urge to have someone to fill that emptiness inside of me was strong enough to marry us in my mind. The premarital sex married us in my mind and spirit. I couldn't see the wide open doors, ways out of the relationship because of this. Lust became the glue in holding something together that was unholy. That lust thing is something else. It's like it's a close comparison. It feels like love. You feel like it is. So even in this situation where I could have just simply maybe walked away or said this wasn't for me. So you have desperation, already engaged in fornication that just strengthened the soul tie, that strengthened something that shouldn't even been meshed together. Regardless of if you don't have a ceremony, do you know when you fornicate, when you're out of the will of God and doing that, you're already married to that person. Your spirit, your soul is married, to that person. And it's hard to break free from that. You won't even understand why you're in the situation you're in. So it's like you stuck. So you see how it's just like this spiral, this roll that happens. It was the desperate, first I was neglected. I had that open door of rejection. Then it was that desperation. Then here comes Jezebel getting mad. Then it's just that, now I got a soul tie. So now I can't break free. And I know good and well this is not for me. And so look, let me go ahead and read on. You guys can ask questions anytime through this. I'm good at reading and commenting and everything. So you guys want to engage, go ahead. My current job at a video store chain was able to transfer me to another store where he lived, and I stayed with him during summer break from college. So see, I was still in college, y'all. I stayed with him during summer break from college after growing tired of visiting every other weekend. I wanted to see what it felt like to wake up next to him every day. Looking back at the situation, I was putting myself in a wife role without a covenant. I was putting myself, so I wanted to try it out. I wanted to shack it up. I wanted to see, I wanted to play house, pretty much. So how many of us have done that? That just seems to be the norm nowadays. But I'm pretty sure a lot of us have done that. We might have lived with somebody before we married them, or, lived with the living boyfriend. So That's just something that just brings a lot of confusion, when you're trying to get serious. I wanted commitment, but settled for uncommitment behavior. During that summer, he and I tried to scrape and save money in hopes of him moving back home with me and searching for an apartment. That summer passed and I came back to my hometown, 20 pounds heavier and full of anger and frustration. I didn't even come back with nothing positive. After that, I came back fat, heavier. I don't think I was really too fat. You know how when you look back and you think you fat, and then you look at yourself now and wish you was that fat that you said was fat. But I was 20 pounds heavier, full of anger and frustration. So I left and came back with all these, just these ungodly things, these things that there was no fruit. This was the fruit of me acting out of the will of God. I was angry and frustrated. He came back with me for a short time to find an apartment, but had to return to his hometown to tie up some loose ends. I remember staying alone in the very small studio apartment for a week or two and never felt more alone than I ever had felt in my whole life. I will call him using various forms of manipulation. I put Jezebel in parentheses, such as crying and ultimatums to get him to move in with me now. Like, I didn't give him no time. I just said, you have to come here with me now, or, giving these ultimatums, being manipulative. So all of this was just starting to go downhill. That loneliness was a constant reminder of what the inside of me felt like. He eventually moved into our studio apartment. Everything should have been all roses and daisies at that point. However, then began the huge battle of self and mind. A couple of years passed and he proposed to me during Valentine's Day in our apartment. What should have been the most happiest and joyful moment in my life turned into another argument. Look, y'all, so this is what I wanted. This is what I wanted. This is what I waited for. And look, y'all could be looking like, this girl was crazy. Look, I made fun and became critical of how he proposed. He stuck a ring inside of a bear and bought me a Valentine's Day cookie. I scoffed at it and basically told him that it was corny. How could I be so mean? Y'all, I was like, where is this coming from? Like I said, I'm reading this and going back, I don't know this woman. I don't know this girl. But that's how I was. And when I tell people that, they do not believe me. They're like, no, you not. No, listen, I wasn't the one. How could I be so mean? To have the man you love propose to you is the day that that most women dream of, period. But what I chose to do was emasculate this man. I chose to crush this man's spirit, ultimately starting a pattern of behavior that went on for years because of my discontentment and manipulation. I believe this is what goes on, with, like abusive relationships, and it's not so often that women, like I said, I'm very transparent. It's not so often that women confess to this. It's always, we would hear about the men being abusive, the men being verbally abusive, but women can be verbally abusive now. We know how to use that tongue to really just break down somebody. So in that time, and that's just a display of how you feel and what's going on in the inside. So, just even with this, because I was just so unhappy with myself, that just lashed out. So did you already have an idea of how you wanted the proposal to go? You know what, to think about it, I did, but it was unrealistic. Like, look, we both was broke. How was he gonna do all of this? How was he gonna have this grand gesture of what I had in my mind? I don't even know exactly what I had in my mind, but I know it was more than what we could afford and what we had. But, but that just showed to me, even in that moment, that I was not, in love. I was not, because then I wouldn't have did that at all. I would have been knowing what the means that he had. I would have known. Yep. Smart mouth and defensive. Woo! I was so defensive, which later on in this book, you gonna see how that defensive, when God asked me that question, how that broke me down. I'm not even gonna get too soon into the story. But that's exactly what happened. So this was the plan, right? To get him to propose. It happened, and I felt feelings that I did not plan to feel. I still felt empty and irritated at the same time. I told myself, maybe things will change after we get married. I am feeling this way because I'm not a wife yet. So see, look at me putting these layers on top of, okay, well, first it was, maybe I feel okay when we're together and we move in. Now it's, okay, well, maybe I'll feel better if I have a ring on my finger. Now it's like, okay, maybe I'll feel better when we get married. I'm trying to put all this other excuses on top of really not dealing with the situation. Letitia, see, if I didn't like the way things were, why did I stay? It was just because of my desperation. I did not care and it was me having low self-esteem, and my standards were really low. And that was just a display of how I thought about myself. I felt like that was okay for me. Like, just as long as it was an able body and they were nice to me, that was okay. Like, that was the state of my mind. Because that emptiness was so hard to just deal with. I mean, I don't know if anybody has ever felt that something was missing. Like I said, in hindsight, that was actually the Holy Spirit. That was actually God pulling on me. But I felt like it was a person. I needed a person. And then at that point of desperation, I didn't care who it was. And so, I can say that, how a lot of women might think. If you can say that for a lot of women that stay in situations that they know, like, we're on the outside and we're asking them, like, why is you staying? It's a mental thing. It becomes like, outside looking in is easy to say that. But when you're in it, it's like day after day, year after year, it's like you can't see anything. You're blinded by what's going on. So, let me go ahead and read on. So, I said, maybe things will change after we get married. I'm feeling this way because I'm not a wife yet. I had one. I was on my way to having my family that I dreamed of, with only a few fixable issues to surpass. Suddenly, the minute that ring was placed on my finger, a bigger monster was created. I grew more controlling, manipulative, bossy, angry, violent, and still empty. So here I am coming into this feeling empty. And then here comes the controlling, the manipulation, the bossiness, the anger, and just turn into just being violent, and I was still empty. Yep, everybody has that breaking point, and I got there. It took a while, but it's just about, knowing my worth. And then, like I said, I'll read further into that. Like I said, this is a lot. This is just, when I tell you that this is just the surface of this book and this testimony, let me tell you, there's a lot more with this. Yep, I felt like something is better than nothing. How many, we did that. Something is better than nothing, at least. At least he ain't this. At least he ain't that. Like, that was my mind. At least he ain't in trouble. At least he ain't out there on the streets. At least he have a job. At least. And that is wrong to think of that, to want less than what God told you can have. So there was a day, look, so here's another example where I was just like, I had to put this out there because this is a way for people to be free. I didn't believe in had and nothing in this book. There was a day that he wanted me to put a curl hair kit in his hair. Now, I'm chuckling now because, he wanted this curl kit. in his hair. Like every month he would ask me, or he would do it sometimes, but he would ask me to do it. Put this curl kit in his hair. So you should think about this guy with this mini Jerry curl kit. And he would always kind of like spike his hair, and I couldn't stand it, y'all. So my sister, she could even tell y'all, my rants and stuff I would have about this kit. So like I did previous times before, don't laugh. S-curls was in style at the moment. Anyway, this should have been a simple task, but this time it was after yet another argument. I told him how much I despised this hairstyle because it didn't exactly curl. It was more spike-like. I remember putting the kit in the hair angrily, and when it was time to wash it out, I didn't want to. I wanted it to burn his scalp because I was angry. Don't that sound crazy, y'all? That sounds crazy. I couldn't hurt a fly. My spirit and my nature now, I'll smash a fly. Right, the texturizer. I couldn't hurt anything. I break for squirrels. If y'all even see how I treat my animals, I just don't, that is just something that was just really just demonic brewing in this situation, that I was just so angry that, that I would want to just do that to somebody. So listen, that day wasn't just about an argument. It was about me being angry with my choice. Again, the choice taunted and haunted me every single day and brewed inside of me. So you just think about it every day you wake up and you just, you're with somebody, you have somebody, but every day in your mind, you're just thinking like, why am I here? Or I have to deal with this. Like, you just feel like you have to deal with it. You have to be here. This is the way life's going to go. You have no hope for the future. You have no direction. So I'm just here. Yep. That's right. Like, I just really thought stuff was going to change. And I think that's what it's too. Like, I just was hoping he would be this person that I had in my mind. Like, he would be this fictional man. We have to be careful, ladies. And I think, men, because like I said, this ministry is just not for women, it's for men as well. We have to be careful idolizing what we want, and then when you get, what's not in your mind, you'll start to try to change that. Yep. Well, see, thank God, because look, I be rejoicing that I'm out of this situation. I thank God. Like, when I think about it, I just thank God. And it's not like that he was a terrible person. He just wasn't for me, and you have to be, when you're healed, when you're that way. I don't have any animosity. I don't have any anger towards him. It's just that we just wasn't right for each other. So let's see. I finally gave in and washed it out of his hair. But the way I washed it out of his hair was even violent. I pushed and shoved his head around while saying mean things to him, emasculating him even the more. If I was a fly on the wall today in that apartment, I could not believe what I had become because I wanted to settle. Me settling brought out the absolute worst in me. Like, when you settle for something, you just get so mad. Like, and I don't want to bring it into like a food context, but let's say you're really hungry. You got your mouth set on something, and then you got to settle for what you got in the house. So let's like, it's like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or something. You mad. You gonna be mad. You have to eat that peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You had your mouth ready for something that you can't have. So you're going to try your best to make that peanut butter and jelly sandwich something that is not. It's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich at the end of the day. This is embarrassing, even putting this down on paper for anyone to read. It was. I'm not, now, that I read it and I tell people my testimony. I wrote this book a couple years ago. Me writing it, I did debate back and forth. I'm like, should I write this down? Is it too much? But now, I can read it. I'm like, people might gasp and and everything, but I'm not that person anymore. So I even put that down. I said, it's like I'm talking about a completely different woman, but I thank God for the deliverance. What I wanted to fulfill and make me happy brought out the absolute worst in me. It brought out the devil's plan for my life. I continued to gain weight during this time, could care less how I dressed or combed my hair. I was just trying to make it day to day, while depression was making its entrance. So, look at all of the stuff that had piled on because of me just wanting to be married and me settling. Now, outside of Jezebel jumping out of the box, now here comes depression trying to come in on top of it. That is a lot. So it's no good fruit coming out of this at all. So wedding plans. Take 1. Now that the ring was on my finger, the next natural thing would be to plan a wedding. The dream wedding that I pictured in my mind far surpassed what him and I were bringing in. Like I said, that imagination was going wild. Together, and mind you, y'all, look, together, we brought in $25,000 together. And the plans for my wedding was about $6,000 to $10,000. After wrecking my brain on how to do the wedding with a very low budget without cutting away from what I wanted, I came up with a plan. I can get almost everything that I wanted under $3,000 or so, I thought. I had in my mind that people would help me put together this dream wedding and would not mind helping out financially for the part, especially my estranged father. So here come the daddy. He wasn't there throughout my life. This will be the chance for him to make up for everything. So this is what I was just saying in my mind. Like, hey, he didn't do nothing all this time. I know he could at least do this. Why I depended on that, or why I just felt like that was just, like I was entitled to that, I have no idea. My mind was infatuated with the wedding more so than the relationship. It was another way to take the mind off of what I was settling for to create something to look forward to. Y'all hear that? This was another way to take the mind off of what I was settling for to create something to look forward to. So the wedding was just the event that I was just like, okay, this is going to take my mind off the relationship. How crazy is that? How crazy is that? But I see that more and more, now where people get so excited about the wedding day and the venue and the food and the guests. We get so wrapped up and we don't pour into strengthening the marriage and the relationship. Like after all the fun is over, after the party is done, now I got to wake up and live with this person. Right, at least. There you go again, settling. Just settling at least. Because wedding in my mind was not, I'm saying that's what I wanted. But that $3,000 wasn't enough. In my mind, what I wanted. I'm a simple person. But at the same time, that wasn't going to be enough for what I had in my mind. Or what I felt like that I deserved. Or that, hey, I done went through all of this. I could at least, look, Tasha, I could at least have a decent wedding. I never thought of what would happen after the wedding was over. In my mind, this was another magic wand that will put everything into perspective. It will make everything make sense. It will make the sufferings that I put myself through worthwhile. So I thought, just after the wedding was over, a switch would hit. I had no idea. Like, I just thought, you get married and it's gonna make sense. You get married, it's gonna fit. Just like all these broken pieces that's together, it's gonna fit. Yep, a moment in time for lifetime commitment. And we do that. Like, a lot of people just exchange that. They want everything's in that moment. And when that moment is gone, then, okay, now I'm with this guy. But then you know what? Then we start chasing other moments. Now it's time to have a baby. You know, so after that, now we got to have and create this other moment. Now it's time to have a baby. Then after the baby, now it's time to, you know, whatever it is, just to mask and hide, you know, what you settled for. You know. So let me go ahead and read on. After looking and browsing through magazines, phone books, the internet for venues, dresses, and decorating ideas, I decided to call my sister up to come with me to book a hall and put a deposit down without, you know, my fiance. In my mind, the deposit was a security that the wedding and the marriage will happen. With only $500, I made a decree and declared to go through with the marriage no matter what. It appeared almost immediately that everything started to fall apart. So this money, it was more than just $500. This was what in my mind, oh, it's gonna happen. No matter what. Hey, this $500, this marriage is going to happen. So I felt like I had to put that down immediately. It was such an urgency, didn't even know why. And my ex-husband, you know, my fiance at that time was just like, why is the rush? You know, he tell me like, well, why is, you know, you have to do it now? Why'd you go without me? But that's what was in my mind. Oh, it's going to happen. So whatever. I put that $500 down. This wedding's going to happen. Not without a 3-strand cord, with God being the strongest of the 3. And that's what was missing. That's what was missing through all of this was God. So me reading this and me writing this down in detail is to show you and to show others watching the replay and those coming in what this looks like without God. Nothing's together. The process, the courting, the marriage, and I'm, even the marriage, I'm going into that. How that never worked out because God wasn't there. So you go ahead and go try to do things without God. But, marriage is a very touchy relationships. It's just the thing that people try to gravitate that I feel like they think makes them whole. But you can't do it without God. And you know what? Let me get on my little soapbox with this. I don't understand, marriage being a godly union. And I've read this through a lot of comments where somebody said, y'all better not be praise dancing, or worshiping in my wedding. Isn't that who created the union is God? And you saying we can't praise and we can't worship God in that moment? That's crazy to me. Now, when I see people saying that, we not doing all of that, that's extra. I don't understand that. Okay, let me continue. After I came back from putting the deposit down on the venue, I told my fiance what I put our money on. Rightly so. Rightly so. So I was agreeing with him with this. Rightly so, he was livid because I didn't discuss it with him. Hence, another argument. My cousin, whom I was very close with at the time, revealed to me in so many words that she thought I was settling. So God will send people and tell you the truth. My cousin was telling me the truth. I didn't want to hear it. She said her words were, I know you can do better. You have so much potential. And that would be the words that I would hear. I don't want to go further, but these were the words that I would hear at the end of the marriage. And it's just so funny how that exactly what she said is what he said, about when it's time for us to get, when he wanted to have the divorce. At the time, I took those words severely to heart. I felt it was an attack on me personally. So I was getting defensive. It appeared the attacks were coming in all at the same time. I made attacks. I put that in quotes. Were coming all at the same time. I made a call to my father to confirm his contribution in paying for my wedding dress. And he had informed me that he didn't have the money. I grew immensely angry at him, not because of the money, but this was a time, the only time that I personally requested support from him, where I felt I needed it the most, and he disappointed me again. It was deeper than a dress. I felt neglected and empty again. As I stated before, it was his one chance I allowed him to show up for me, and he did not. The last incident was, as the saying goes, the straw that broke the camel's back. It was a straw that broke my spirit. I then tried to re-scramble the budget to see if I could be able to maneuver a dress fund with no progress. Since everything appeared to not want to work itself out, I was forced to cancel the wedding plans. The deposit was lost for the wedding hall because it was non-refundable. I tried to have a party in place instead so that we wouldn't lose out totally on the money, but that plan fell through as well. At that moment, I felt unsupported, alone, neglected, disappointed. All of it was a recipe for depression to set in. I went to bed after the final plan went through and remembered my body not being able to get up. I had pains in my body as I tossed and turned. I cried until I couldn't cry any longer. I lost my appetite. I felt that all I could do to make the pain go away was to sleep. My plans were falling through across the board. God's way of getting my attention was evident. I wanted to end the relationship. So even then, I just wanted to end it. I'm like, okay, I want just everything just to go. Everything, like, hey, let's just get everything away from me. Get everything away from me that's just causing all of this. Like, I gave up at that point. Like, I just remember, just like, it all just felt like if anybody had dealt with maybe depression or depressive mood, it just feels like a ton of bricks, a ton of weight comes on you all at the same time. And it just seems like there's no hope. There's no positive outlook to things. And that's exactly where I was at. I was not getting out this bed, After 3 days of not moving in my bed, I told him I wanted to break up. He grew upset and called his mother and passed the phone to me. Now, this was the built-up resentment she had towards me spilled out in that one phone call. She accused me of using her son and not ever loving him. But what she clearly was angry about was me taking her baby away from her. I held onto the phone crying and repeated to him what was said. For the first time in our relationship, he stood up to his mother for me. Y'all, that was a battle. Before then, like, he would always used to take his mother's side. He was a mother's boy. So anything that I did, it was just always wrong, and I didn't understand. He told her that she needed to apologize and that I was going to be his wife. It was something about hearing the word wife that made me perk up a little. Someone was claiming me, and I needed to hear that amidst my insecure state. At that moment, I changed my mind about breaking up with him, but I still did not want to get out of the bed. I would hear voices during the night in my head to open the Bible. I had an old dusty Bible that I never opened and managed to gain enough strength to get out of my bed of misery and reach out to the shelf to bring the Bible back into bed with me. The first book I opened up was the book of Psalms, chapter 27. Verse 1. The Lord is my life and salvation, whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life, of whom shall I be afraid? And I tear up every time I read this, only because that just shows you the power of God's word and the saving power, that the Bible has. Like, nobody could never tell me that there's no power in the word of God. There's no power, in the Bible. Nobody can tell me that. This is witness to the fact, on how powerful God's word is. So can nobody tell me different? Can nobody tell me the Bible is just stories and it's just, written by man? Like, at this point, that all of that I may be speaking before at the window, like, okay, yeah, people could have changed stuff in the Bible and could have wrote what they want, but you have to know that God has to be revealed to you for it to be real. So reading Psalms, 27, reading the whole Psalm 27 just took me to a place. I repeated this verse until I eventually gained strength to get out of bed. I would have long conversations over the phone with my older sister, pouring out to her the thoughts that were plaguing my mind. I remember her telling me that breakups are never easy, and if this is the decision that I wanted to make, I would have to do it and go through the pain of letting go. So I think that's a lot of reasons why a lot of us don't want to leave maybe a toxic situation. We're so concerned and we dwell on the pain of letting go rather than, okay, you're already in pain in it, but we're just so concerned about what it feels like or what we have to go through when it's time to let go. Sometimes we don't even want to go through that. So just being and staying where we are is better than, just go ahead and letting it go. After that conversation, I knew deep down in my heart what I needed to do. I needed to break up with my fiance. I remember managing to get out of bed on the 5th day of my depressive state and being able to go to work. As I was working, I made up my mind what I wanted to do. As I left for work, I saw a bouquet of flowers and a note on my car from my fiance expressing his hopes and wishes for us to work everything out. I accepted it again, and again, I chose to settle. I wasn't strong enough. I still didn't allow the Lord to be the strength of my life that I proclaimed out of my mouth. The scripture worked enough to give me strength to get out of my bed, but I yet had the faith to believe it. I allowed my loneliness and emptiness to stitch together what God was trying to sever. My emptiness and fear were still the stronghold in my life. Yeah, and if the pain becomes normalized, it just becomes, and it does. Like when I think about, because we were married for almost like 9 years. It's either 9 years or almost 9 years. Or no, we're married for almost 9 years. And you just think about it, like that was just normal. Like I was just going through life. I just woke up and just, just go through the motions. And I mean, not to say that it was all bad. If anything, at the end of the day, we were the best of friends. But that's where it should have stayed was that, I took that and made it into something that it wasn't supposed to be. We could have probably been good friends to this day. But, just kind of just forcing that situation and forcing us to be together, So Wedding Plans Takes Two. I'm almost done. I want to go ahead and read up to, so Wedding Plan Takes Two is when I'm actually really planning the wedding this time and then it's happening. And then the big day. Y'all gonna be, when I was feeling you thought you would be happy, should be happy on your big day. Let me tell y'all, I was feeling just the opposite. Just wait. Just hold on. Hold on to your seatbelts. Wedding Plans Take Two. My fiance and I remained in our small studio apartment for another year until I grew tired of the space that we were in. After more arguments and manipulative measures, I was able to get him to agree to move into a townhouse apartment. I wanted to run away from the experiences at the small cramped attic and studio and started afresh. The depressive gate that I had entered into altered my mind in a way that I was never the same. Like, I was never the same. After I went to that darkness entered my life, I was never the same. Like, it altered me in a way where I had to kind of maybe force myself to be happy about a lot of things. Like, to do normal things. I had to really just force myself to be excited about stuff. I was just like in this weird spot. I was no longer the happy, bright-eyed, cheerful woman I knew myself to be. Others may have not seen the difference, but I felt the difference in my heart, mind, and spirit. I was worn out and down with emotion and would fight every day, wishing and hoping that I would never end up in that state again. I was trying to keep my mind in my own strength without the Father's help. It only got worse after that. So, I could even show pictures of, around this time where the light in my eyes, like behind my eyes, were kind of just dim. They were kind of gone. You can see where like my spirit was just really just like in a dark place. I look at pictures now and I'm just like, oh my God. And I do like a side-by-side comparison of maybe a recent picture today and a picture then. People are just like, wow, I truly see the difference. Like, you truly see physically the transformation that God makes in your life. When you're really like truly delivered and he truly does a change in you. So I wrote down Proverbs 26:28. Those who trust in themselves are fools, but those who walk in wisdom are kept safe. And that is so true today. The townhouse was a mansion compared to the one-room studio we came from. Man, let me tell you about the studio we had. It was so small. I didn't even like the shower and the bathtub. I didn't even see how we took the a bath, let alone the bathtub was so little. And the kitchen, we could hardly get like a full-size, there's no full-size refrigerator. So cooking and stuff was like really difficult. We had to get like a deep little mini deep freezer. So a lot of unfreezing, man. It was like, so when I know struggle. I know what it means to struggle and have necessities. Like I said, studio, we had a blow up bed. We didn't even have a real bed. So I was so excited about this apartment, y'all, because we could have a real bed. We had like a futon that was like really hurting my back. So, y'all, I just thought this was a mansion. I was on the come up, y'all. It had 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, and a basement. More money was coming into the household, and more space was affordable for us. We went through the motions of continuing to be a living couple with no wedding plans in sight. I was fearful to start planning anything because of what happened the first time I wanted to plan a wedding. I couldn't handle feeling any more rejection, any more pain, any more disappointment. I feared being in that dark place again in my mind. This move into a new space was to represent a fresh start. What I wanted to be a fresh start just continued to spoil and rot. The physical side of our relationship began to deteriorate because I became disgusted with him touching me. And the anger continued to grow to the point where I found myself yelling and arguing with him every day. I completely shut down in my mind. I didn't care how I dressed, how much and what I ate, nor how I kept my hair at the time. My spirit was slowly dying as I remained in a relationship without a covenant. The time came where I gained the courage and decided to set a date for the wedding. I chose the date for the wedding. Listen to all these eyes in here, y'all. I chose the date for the wedding. I purchased both wedding rings because I was not satisfied with the engagement ring. I dragged him down to the courthouse to apply for our marriage license. And again, I went and booked a hall with little money that we had. It was all about I and what I wanted. Relinda Candace McCoy had something to prove that I had not made a mistake and that this marriage will work. At this point, my mind went into how much time was invested in the relationship. I couldn't let it go. In today's society, we base major decision making in relationships on time invested into someone. That's dangerous. Don't never settle because of time invested. You spent so much time with this person that you feel like, hey, we've been together all these years. We might as well. We might as well not. Because if it take all that time to make a decision, that probably means it shouldn't happen. Let me offer this advice to you. Never feel that you are too deep in something that you can't pull yourself out. Time is not always the determining factor in decision making. This is especially true when considering something that is a holy and sacred institute, such as a marriage. The big day. So I think this is about a page, 2 pages long. So I'm just going to read straight through it. The big day finally arrived. I had my dress, which was simply ivory colored wedding gown from David's Bridal. My hair was done. My fiance had his suit and shoes, and my mom's backyard was decorated. The hall was ready for the reception. Some family already came in from out of town, and others were on their way. I remember waking up that morning sick to my stomach. I was in the apartment by myself because I wanted to follow the tradition of the groom not seeing the bride until the wedding day, but I felt alone again. The feeling was all too familiar. I got nauseous and ran into my bathroom to get ready to project out what I was holding in. I didn't purge what was needed to exit my body. The pain, the anger, the guilt, the control, the fear, it was all still there. Somehow I managed to control my deliverance. When I wrote this book and wrote that part and thought about it, I'm thinking like, okay, that was just a natural thing. But when I looked back at it, God was trying to deliver me then. He was trying to deliver me then. I held it back. I did not want to go through deliverance. It was inconvenient at that time. I'm about to walk down this aisle, and you telling me I'm about to go through deliverance. I'm not about to go through. Oh no, I'm going through this. That's how strong this was. I refused to stop what I had manipulated all those years. The wedding was going to happen. This is all wedding jitters, I told myself. I proceeded to gather myself together to take myself to the nail parlor to put finishing touches on my look for the day. As the nail technician worked on my nails, I wanted to cry. I wanted to cry harder than I ever had before. I felt as if something was dying inside of me, and I couldn't figure out why I was mourning. It was the start of something birth, and all I could feel was my spirit dying. I managed to make it out of the nail shop without losing it altogether. I went to my mother's house to get dressed and prepare for the day. I had waited for my whole life. The song played, and I had my mother walk me down the aisle to my fiancé. I read the vows to him as if I were just reading them to an ordinary stranger. I started to bawl my eyes out as I finished reading my portion. I was dying in front of my family and this man that I settled with. Everyone saw it as happiness tears for the bride. Everyone there attended a wedding as I attended a funeral. Who feels like that at a wedding? What bride feels like this on what is to be the most important day of their life? I did. I felt the conviction of being outside of the will of God, even while entering in a holy covenant. I felt the conviction of being outside of the will of God, even while entering to a holy covenant. So even though this is the right thing to do, I felt convicted in it. How ironic. Even though the Apostle Paul states that it's better to marry than to burn, it is still not best to marry with the wrong intentions. I want God's best. I want the best. I don't want to do it's better to marry. I want what's best. I gave up on the possibility of best and went for at least or the better for my life. Don't get me wrong. My husband at the time was a good person and was my best friend. But good was not what God had planned for my destiny. I exhaled after the ceremony, got through the reception that became a blur, and headed home. Nothing changed. I still felt empty. I thought this ceremony would ignite a flame for my then husband, but I barely wanted him to touch me anymore. The honeymoon was even awkward. It was as if we were just two good friends going on a trip together and sharing a room. There were points where we laughed and enjoyed the trip, while the other half was exhausting and stressful, but this is what I wanted. I had taken vows, and there was no turning back now. My thought was, if I have to suffer, I will suffer in my mistake. So that is the end of chapter 1, y'all. We're going to chapter 2. Next week is Love Pains Continues. So this is going to go into the marriage. This is going to go a little bit more into the marriage, and it's going to go into what happened leading up to our divorce. And I believe this was strictly just God blowing through through this end part of the marriage. So I hope you guys are enjoying me reading this and you're getting something out of it. Did you guys have any questions or anything to ask? Again, I'm reading from my book. It is The Psalms of My Emotions, where my ministry was birthed. The P of me stands for The Psalms of My Emotions. So I just want you guys to, I can see if I can write, let me see if I can maybe tag it. My book, hold on. So if you guys have any questions, ask me. Or how do you guys like this reading so far? Yay, I pinned it. So how are you guys liking this reading so far? You know, this is something new. I don't see a lot of people doing this online. You know, as far as reading their books and, you know, really just pouring out what God has given them to minister. Like I said, this to me is just a ministry in itself. You know, I believe, you know, whoever watches the replay or whoever watches today, you know, my greatest desire and my greatest, you know, prayer is that this will help somebody, you know, in the area, you know, especially relationships where, you know, everyone wants to jump into marriage. Everybody, you know, now I would say everybody, but a lot of women want to jump into marriage at this time, especially when the world seems so uncertain. There's a lot of things going on. So we just, you know, got to be careful not to be taking anything just because they're a man, you know. Hey, you're a man, you're available, let me take you because the world about to end. Like, this is not, you know, you still have to do and operate what God is, how he wants you to go. And he, you know, if you have that desire to be married, there's a person for you. You know, he desires for you to get married. God would not plant that desire for you if he didn't intend on, you know, and it's just not one person, because we all have our choices, but he will bring people in front of you. And you have the power to choose. You know, that's that free will. You have the power to choose to be with that person. And that all depends on where you're at, you know, in God, if you're going to be able to detect them, to see them. You know, a lot of us, our husband walked past us, you know, a lot of times, and because we were not ready, or in our minds we wanted him to be and look a certain way, we missed them. So you just have to be just connected with God to see who that is. And then, you know, you just have to be emotionally sound, be healed, you know, to engage and to go into that area of marriage. That marriage is a whole nother ballpark. It's not just a relationship. It's not just, you know, a boyfriend. It's just, you know, this is a covenant. You are one. You are one. And then, you know, as I read for next week, you know, I'll even explain and go into the effects of, you know, divorce. People just think like, oh, just go get a divorce so you get. No, that is you want flesh. Just imagine your flesh snatching, like pulling itself apart. One flesh, you just pulling it hurts. So I'll go into that next week. So I'm glad you guys enjoyed or will enjoy. This will be on my YouTube channel as well. I put all replays on my YouTube channel all in one spot, even the thoughts of the days that I do. So it's the P of me. If you search my name, Relinda C. McCoy, you'll be able to find it on YouTube channel. So I thank you guys for joining in. Thank you all if you're going to come in for the replay. So next week, we're going to continue on the journey to the Psalms of My Emotions. You guys have a good day. Bye-bye.